Hello race fans, welcome back to the channel. It is I, Jake Sanderson, aka Snowman Cycling, and we're going to start this week's episode off with a what not to do when you're in the pen, 50 seconds out from the start of a race, shifting into your big ring, dropping your chain, feverishly jumping off the bike to get it back on again. At least that got my heart rate up, considering I didn't have time to warm up properly as this was a lunchtime race. It's never easy, is it? Well, that might well set the theme of today's race, because this is going to be a really difficult, brutal, attritional race, because it's going to be short, sharp and speedy as we do the SAZ speed race. So it's just going to be 4 laps of Crit City, giving us a total of 7.6k. So there's going to be no room for error, no room to breathe. And I've got a plan this week that might not make me popular in the peloton, but may make me popular with you, the viewers, and that's all I care about. So let's jump into this one and have a look. So as we roll out of the pen, I realise this isn't going to be the biggest of fields. There's only 8 riders, but that comes with its own challenges because there's much less draft available. So if any gaps open up, they can really stick. So if 1 or 2 strong riders get a gap, make a break, force it to split here, then unless everybody else works, it's going to stay away. So it's really important to be acutely aware of those gaps, those attacks, and make sure that if anybody starts to go for it, you go with them. That being said, this week we're trying not to look too strong because we're going to try something a little bit cheeky. I want to try something that I was inspired by seeing Richard Carapaz doing the Tour de France a couple of years back against Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogacar, where he basically dangled off the back of that small group and let the wheel go a couple of times to make them think that he wasn't capable of coming through and taking a pull before he courageously attacked them with everything he had trying to get that gap. So I really liked that style. And as we come around here to the sprint, this it's the only real difficulty on this lap of Crit City. So watch for this every lap. This is where people are going to try and split the race, where the stronger riders are going to try and put in some attacks. So I'm going to let them do the work for me, as we like to do here on Snowman Cycling, and just sit at the back of this small group, get as much draft as I possibly can. And even then, I'm having to put in bursts of just above 6 watts per kilo so as not to get dropped. The rider on the front of the group, McBikeface, is obviously one of the stronger riders in this group, and he wants to try and make it as hard as possible for everybody else over the top of that climb. But these laps are going to be coming on us really quick. It's going to be 2.5 minutes a lap. This whole race is going to be about 10 minutes. So even though it's going to feel a bit nasty and the pace is going to feel a little bit high, it's important to remember that this is going to be over before we even know what's happened. So got to find a way to dig in there, ignore the suffering, ignore the shouting and the screaming from the legs, and just try to hang on for as long as possible in that front group. And the good thing about this Crit City course is it is quite predictable, so you can kind of understand when you can sit in and when the attacks are coming. And at this point, I'm pretty confident that there's not going to be any more big attacks until the next coming up. And when they come, I think it's going to be time for us to start putting that plan of fake suffering into action. And we're going to start doing the old rope-a-dope, see if we can get some of these guys to buy into this story that we're trying to tell them about really hurting off the back. So we're going to make sure we do that as this comes up very shortly. Make sure to deploy my drafting boost in advance of that I don't really want the benefit on the if we're going to tell that story of suffering effectively. And as we come back around to that I take a look at the camera and I say to you guys, is this it? Is this the spot where we're going to launch it from later on? Well, we'll have to wait and see later on, but that looks like a good place to launch it. And as we're thinking about that, we can see that the riders on the front are deploying their power-ups and they're putting in an attack. So that bikey McBikeface from before is going really hard. And this is where I elect to let the wheel go a little bit, to just not let it go enough that I'm not getting any draft, but to just let it go enough that I look like I'm suffering, and to come around the riders that are letting those wheels go. Because you can tell when those riders don't have the pep to close that gap, and that rider at the back looked like he was never coming back, which turned out to be the case. So I look like I'm grimacing, trying to claw my way back to these guys. I make sure to not come straight through to the front of the group, group, I make sure to leave that gap at 10 meters and then slowly close it to look like I'm really working hard to do so. And then by the point that I connect to the back of this group, there's only 4 riders. Half of the field has already been decimated. So that move was a really selective move from Bikey McBikeface, and it really trimmed the field very, very attritional. But that's why we're making sure here that we just connect to the back of that group. And would you believe it, 7Ye, one of the 2 riders with McBikeface who was pushing the pace on that comp, has elected to keep pulling here. So he thinks that this is worth keep putting the power down because they've got a bit of a gap on the riders behind. But I looked at the camera there and I said it's too early. What I meant by that is I'm not going to work here, A, because I'm telling the story of suffering, but B, it's too early for us to commit full time to a break here. But mainly because the riders behind us got dropped on that comp. So I'm not really worried about them. They're not, even if they manage to connect back onto this group, they've shown they haven't got the punch to really contend with the front few riders when it comes to that finish. So I'm really not concerned if they get back on or not. So I don't think there's much point pulling here. But I'm going to let McBikeface and 7Ye do the work, keep pulling. I can't pull because I'm suffering so badly. That's what they think anyway. So me and Shinoyama are going to be sat here on the back and let these guys do the work until we get to the next comp. And then we're going to have to see, are they going to attack it really, really hard again? Are they going to wise up and realize I might be sitting on? Or are they going to try and get rid of somebody like Shinoyama, who is probably legitimately suffering here, unless he's playing poker face like me? And some of you might feel bad about doing this sort of trick, playing these sorts of games on the front riders, getting them to work. McBikeface is holding a steady 4.2 watts per kilo here. He's really pulling really, really hard. Maybe he knows he hasn't got the best sprint and this is his best chance of getting onto the podium, especially with a small gap to Shinoyama off the back there. He elects to keep putting the pace down as we come to this comp. But I'm going to do just enough to dangle off the back, connect with this group, and again, tell the story that I'm really, really hurting these guys. So I elect to let the wheel go just 5 meters there. Again, still getting enough draft off this that it's not catastrophic. But it's just going to make those riders think that they've got me hurting. They've got me on the ropes. And these attacks that they're putting in are going to pay off. Whereas I want them to keep doing that, to keep using their energy, so we can go all in with one big attack closer towards the end. And they must be thinking here, with that gap to Shinoyama off the back, it's worth putting the power down. Because if you don't have a sprint, and you can get rid of that 4th rider, you guaranteed yourself a podium, even though you can't sprint. So it might be worth doing if you're McBikeface or 7Ye, you know you haven't got the best sprint in the world, to keep pulling here. But otherwise, I really don't see the point. You've proved that you're in the 3 punchiest riders on those 2 comms. So you don't need to worry about that 4th rider back when it comes to the sprint, in my opinion. And no doubt 7Ye and McBikeface were annoyed that I wouldn't take a turn here, but they never even asked me to pull. And I wonder if that's because they legitimately did think I was suffering because of that dangling off the back. Maybe they should have asked me to try and take a turn or take a pull through. Racing's not about making friends, it's about trying to get people to do the work whilst you do as little work as possible. So yes, don't feel bad about it if you're taking advantage of riders like this, taking advantage of their strength and their power to put you in a position to win. That's racing for you, unfortunately. If you don't like it, maybe stick to the solo TT scene where you won't have losers like me playing tricks on you to try and win a B category Zwift race with 8 riders. And that means with 1.9 kilometers to go, McBikeface and 7Ye have towed me to within my striking point, my one big attack point of that comp. So we've got about 800 meters before we're going to launch it. So whilst we do that, I'm going to give you a quick update on how things have been going on the channel. I've been asking you guys to try and subscribe to help me get to that 1,000 subscriber mark and unlock a load of YouTube features that I currently don't have access to as a small content creator. You guys have been fantastic. We've now hit the 800 mark. Really, really cool. So we're 80% of the way there. So a massive thanks to everybody for the support. If you are a new or returning viewer and you've enjoyed this content, then please help me out. Hit that like, comment, most importantly, subscribe button. Help us get to that 1,000 subscriber mark. And in return, I promise you loads of great content like this, where you get to see a 35-year-old man in Lycra taking a computer game way too seriously as he races against small fields of 8 riders. But if I wasn't so over-the-top competitive, we wouldn't have this YouTube channel, and I certainly wouldn't be the 2013 Micro Machines World Champion. But none of that matters anymore, because the time for fake suffering is over. Now it's time to attack. As I deploy my power up for the first time in the race, I close the wheel for 7Ye and I come around Bikey McBikeface, and for the first time in the race I take that first position on the road. I don't want to be at the front unless I'm going all in to win it, and this is definitely that, as we hit it with everything we've got. Try and sprint as fast as I can to come around that corner as it levels out. I spot that the gap is 20 meters and it looks like it's only going to get bigger unless these guys group up, work together and start to throw that power down. There's only 700 meters left. That's probably going to be 30-40 seconds of racing, and I know that these guys are going to have to absolutely drill it to try and pull that ground back on me before we get to that finish, because I really want this win. And as we're going to have a look at in the power after the fact, this ended up being a 10-minute power PB because of this one huge attack that we threw in at the very end. And at this point I am really suffering, but I know that if I just grit my teeth, keep pedaling for another few seconds, then I've got this win wrapped up and in the bag. And as we come around that home straight, I start thinking about, well, how are we going to celebrate this one? And it's been a little while coming, as I haven't been doing much racing recently, but I made a promise a long time ago to follower of the channel, Paul Southworth, that I would get you covered with the Paolo Bettini rifle salute. So there you go, my friend. Took a while, but we got there in the end. Although that was the worst shooting I've seen since England's last World Cup penalty shootout. So if you've got any suggestions for celebrations in the future, let me know in the comments. We'll get your one up there next time. And I'm sure that I didn't make any friends today from McBikeface or 7Ye. I did try thanking them in the chat afterwards and got blanked by both. But when we have a look at the power after the fact, we can see that I definitely worked really hard for my win there. My average power was only 3.8 watts per kilo, but my normalized power just under 5 watts per kilo for 11 minutes. That would easily be an 11-minute PB for me. We can see that my average heart rate and my max heart rate was also the highest in the whole race, so I really did work hard for that one, but probably not hard enough for 7Ye and McBikeface. I'm definitely not going to be on their Christmas card list. So I hope you enjoyed that one, guys. Thank you again for joining me this week. I hope to catch you on the next one. Make sure you smash that like, comment, most importantly subscribe button, and remember, most importantly, race fast, ride hard, and that you are appreciated.